I chain smoke and I say fuck a lot. But I accept myself for the way I am. I accept you too. Viewer discretion advised. FBI releases Finder's files after 3 decades. Declassified investigation linked to Tallahassee child abuse case. Federal agents concluded there was no evidence of criminal activity and dropped the case against the Finders. It would have been swept into the annals of the FBI case history, except for a Stuart, Florida resident named Skip Clements, who had been researching the Finders for years. He claimed the U.S. Customs Service called off the investigation at behest of the CIA, which he said was using the commune as a front to train agents. He even convinced at least 2 members of Congress to look into it, and it sparked a Justice Department investigation. Both congressmen have since died. Another document said a customs agent who asked to review evidence in the case was told it was a CIA internal matter. First off, thanks to Ben's Muircroft and Majestic Angel for helping me look into this stuff. It's a very complex case, as you may know. To save time, and because it's done so well, instead of me reading a backstory, I used a clip from a book called Operation Mind Control by Walter H. Ballard. So check this out.
According to a Customs Service memorandum, the CIA and FCIA, or Foreign Counterintelligence Agency, a distinct and autonomous organization within the FBI, were both involved in a mysterious group with behaviors similar to the one in Nebraska. Known as the Finders, CIA ownership of this organization was kept secret for 7 years after local law enforcement uncovered its practice of child abduction, kiddie porn, ritual abuse, and slavery. In early February 1987, an anonymous tip to the Tallahassee, Florida police brought cops out like bloodhounds. The caller said 2 well-dressed men seemed to be supervising 6 disheveled and hungry children in a local park. The 2 men were identified as members of the Finders. They were charged with child abuse in Florida. The customs agents determined that the children may have been en route to Mexico from Washington, D.C. Customs had been contacted because police officers suspected the adults of being involved in child pornography, and they knew the Customs Service had a network of child pornography investigators in their Child Pornography and Protections Unit. When the customs agents came on the scene, police had 2 well-dressed white males, Douglas Edward Ammerman and James Michael Howell. The 6 children were identified with full names, but we shall use only first names since they are definitely innocent. The children were Mary, age 7, Max, age 6, Benjamin, age 4, Honeybee, age 3, BB, age 2, and John Paul, age 2. All were taken into custody. According to the customs memorandum, the children were poorly dressed, bruised, dirty, and behaving like animals in a public park in Tallahassee when they were taken into custody. The subjects were living in a white 1979 Dodge van with Virginia plates. When taken into custody, the adult white males refused to cooperate. One of them produced a business card with a name on one side and a statement on the other. The statement indicated that the bearer knew his constitutional rights to remain silent and that he intended to do so. Upon interviewing the children, the memorandum said, the police officers found that they could not adequately identify themselves or their custodians. Further, they stated they were en route to Mexico to attend a school for smart kids. The children were unaware of the function and purpose of telephones, televisions, and toilets, the memorandum said. The children stated they were not allowed to live indoors and were only given food as a reward. One wonders for what. In the van, the Tallahassee police discovered large quantities of records, computer disks, and a U.S. passport. From some of the records, the police obtained identification of the 2 adults and partial identification of the children. This led to search warrants of 2 Washington, D.C. addresses owned by the Finders Group. An informant gave the police information regarding a cult by that name, operating at various businesses, one of which was a warehouse for the children. The information was specific in describing blood rituals and sexual orgies involving children, and an as-yet unsolved murder in which the Finders may be involved, the memorandum said. With the information provided by the informant, detectives were able to match some of the children in Tallahassee with the names of children alleged to be in the custody of the Finders, the memorandum said. During the execution of the warrant at 3918 and 3920th West Street, the memorandum said, I was able to observe and access the entire building. I saw large quantities of children's clothing and toys. The clothing consisting of diapers and clothes in the toddler to preschool range. No children were found on the premises. There were several subjects on the premises. Only one was deemed to be connected with the Finders. Stuart Miles Silverstone was renting space to other tenants. He was located in a room equipped with several computers, printers, and numerous documents. Cursory examination of the documents revealed detailed instructions for obtaining children for unspecified purposes. The instructions included the impregnation of female members of the community known as finders, purchasing children, trading, and kidnapping. There were telex messages using MCI account numbers between a computer terminal believed to be located in the same room and others located across the country and in foreign locations. One such telex specifically ordered the purchase of 2 children in Hong Kong to be arranged through a contact in the Chinese embassy there. Another telex expressed an interest in bank secrecy situations. Other documents identified interests in high-tech transfers to the United Kingdom, numerous properties under the control of the finders, a keen interest in terrorism, explosives, and the evasion of law enforcement. Also found in the computer room was a detailed summary of the events surrounding the arrest and taking into custody of the 2 adults and 6 children in Tallahassee, Florida, on the previous night. There were also a set of instructions which appeared to be broadcast via a computer network, which advised participants to move the children and keep them moving through different jurisdictions, and instructions on how to avoid police attention. At the other Washington address, the customs agent writing the memo was again granted unlimited access to the premises. I was able to observe numerous documents which described explicit sexual conduct between the members of the community known as finders. I also saw a large collection of photographs of unidentified persons. Some of the photographs were nudes, believed to be of members of finders. There were numerous photos of children, some nude, at least one of which was a photo of a child on display and appearing to accent the child's genitals. I was only able to examine a very small amount of the photos at this time. However, one of the officers presented me with a photo album for my review. The album contained a series of photos of adults and children dressed in white sheets participating in a blood ritual. The ritual centered around the execution of at least 2 goats. The photos portrayed the execution, disembowelment, skinning, and dismemberment of the goats at the hands of the children. This included the removal of the testes of a male goat, the discovery of a female goat's womb and the baby goats inside the womb, and the presentation of a goat's head to one of the children, the memo said. Further inspection of the premises disclosed numerous files relating to activities of the organization in different parts of the world. Locations I observed are as follows: London, Germany, the Bahamas, Japan, Hong Kong, Malaysia, Africa, Costa Rica, and Europe. There was also a file identified as Palestinian. Other files were identified by member name or project name, the projects appearing to be operated for commercial purposes under front names for the finders. There was one file entitled Pentagon Break-In, and others which referred to members operating in foreign countries. Not observed by me, but related by an officer, were intelligence files on private families not related to the finders. The process undertaken appears to have been a systematic response to local newspaper advertisements for babysitters, tutors, etc. A member of the finders would respond and gather as much information as possible about the habits, identity, occupation, etc. of the family. The use to which this information was to be put is still unknown. There was also a large amount of data collected on various child care organizations. The warehouse contained a large library, 2 kitchens, a sauna, hot tub, and a video room. The video room seemed to be set up as an indoctrination center. It also appeared that the organization had the capability to produce its own videos. There were what appeared to be training areas for children and what appeared to be an altar set up in a residential area of the warehouse. Many jars of urine and feces were located in this area. I should also mention that both premises were equipped with satellite dish antennas. U.S. Customs interests, the memo concludes, now lie in the purpose behind the inquiries into bank secrecy laws, and the purpose of the organized procurement and smuggling of children across the U.S. international borders. The possibility still exists that the children are being smuggled for a primary or secondary purpose of producing child pornography. Other agencies with interest may be the Internal Revenue Service, the Immigration and Naturalization Service, the Department of Commerce, the Department of Defense, and the FBI. The FBI is already involved in the investigation of the transportation of the children already discovered across state lines as it pertains to the Mann Act. In an attached memo dated April 13, 1987, the cryptocracy's secret unraveled. Referring to the previous memo by date and description, subject Finders from Special Agent, this memo reads, "I spoke to a third party who was willing to discuss the case with me on a strictly off-the-record basis. I was advised that all the passport data had been turned over to the State Department for their investigation. The State Department in turn advised Metropolitan Police Department that all travel and use of the passports by the holders of the passports was within law and no action would be taken. This included travel to Moscow, North Korea, and North Vietnam from the late 1950s to mid-1970s. The individual further advised me of circumstances which indicated that the investigation into the activity of the finders had become a CIA internal matter. The police report has been classified secret and was not available for review. I was advised that the FBI had withdrawn from the investigation several weeks prior, and that the FBI Foreign Counterintelligence Division had directed the police not to advise the FBI Washington Field Office of anything that had transpired. No further information will be available, no further action will be taken. An attached chronology points out that the CIA made one contact and admitted to owning the Finders organization as a front for a domestic computer training operation, but that it had gone bad. CIA defers all further contracts to FCIA, Foreign Counterintelligence Agency, is a distinct and autonomous organization within the FBI. The conclusion of the chronology reads, children discovered in Tallahassee were eventually turned over to individuals claiming to be parents or guardians. As far as is known, no details of CIA or FCIA involvement ever became public, was the final line of the Customs report.
The children were eventually released to their mothers. Here's 4 out of 5 of the moms, left to right. From the left, Kristen Noth, mother of Ben, 4. Judith Evans, Honeybee, 3. Paula Arico, Mary, 7, and John Paul, 2. Carolyn Said, Phoebe, 2. And not pictured, Patricia Livingstone, son Max, 6. And here's a couple things that should be mentioned. They started investigating in December of 1986. That's why they took off with the kids. An investigation of the group began last December of 1986 with a complaint of child abuse, sexual abuse, and that it was some kind of satanic cult. But we were never able to prove any of the allegations. They were tipped off they were going to be investigated, and that's why the kids were on the road in the first place. Also worth noting is there was a hole found in the basement of the duplex in DC. Where have I heard that before? Detective Bradley expressed concern about some info from 3 sources about a hole that was discovered in the basement of the W Street house. Neighbors said a number of persons had visited the 2-story colonial-style home, saying they were looking for the Chinese embassy. They were always Oriental, said Dan Maholland, a medical student who lives 2 doors down from the home. On one occasion, a man who was looking for the finders said that the address had been advertised in Europe as a youth hostel. Another neighbor, Nancy Wright, said a girl had come to her home and asked directions to the finder's house, but she said she had seen the address on a notice at a bus station advertising a youth hostel. Police investigator Cheryl Wigand told the Tallahassee Democrat on Saturday night that more than one of the children had been sexually abused. In Virginia, the authorities said they had completed their part of the investigation by searching 5 places in Madison County where members of the group were said to have occupied farms and homes. When they were searching the Virginia farms, they found cages for children. Some of the material seized included photos showing children involved in bloodletting ceremonies of animals and one photograph of a child in chains. Oddly enough, the Finders documents contain a couple pages referring to McMartin Preschool. First off, there's a map. The tunnels found at McMartin Preschool, a preliminary report. 45-foot tunnel. 9-foot wide subterranean entrance found under west wall of the quote dog room, classroom 4, blank classroom. Avocado tree roots cut on both sides of the entrance. Disney bag, copyright 1982, found 4.5 feet below the classroom floor, and 3 to 6 inches in from entrance and under foundation, classroom 4. Tunnel proceeded south, then east 45 feet through classroom 4 and 3, and north, then east 10 feet within classroom 4. Tunnels were 30 inches wide, 44 to 46 inches deep, with the top of the tunnel 30 inches under the classroom floor. What's that, about 2.5 by 3.5 feet or something? 4 large upright containers were found in the tunnel under the arch, obviously hand-placed. A 9-foot wide chamber was found along the tunnel. Tunnel features made it evident that tunnel was hand-dug. 7-foot tunnel extending into the triplex next door. Tunnel extended from the bathrooms off the office in Classroom 1 to the front yard of the triplex next door. Front yard concealed from street by 3-car garage. Children described entrance and exiting tunnel in triplex yard exactly where the tunnel and exit were found. A small white plastic plate with 3 pentagrams hand-drawn on top of light green paint was found by the archaeologist in the stratified dirt in the play yard. Per a historical archaeologist, pentagrams were hand-drawn by an adult and not part of the manufacturer's design. No doorknobs were on Classroom 3, only a deadbolt lock. Each classroom had on and off light switch labeled fire alarm. The system did not connect to fire station but was used as an alert within the school. More than 2,000 artifacts were found under the school floor, including over 100 animal bones.
Up until now, there has been no clear-cut, irrefutable evidence available to the public. But now, finally, the public has smoking gun evidence of pedophile kidnapping, abuse rings operated by a U.S. government intelligence agency. These official U.S. Customs investigation reports are irrefutable evidence of 1. A case of obvious child neglect and abuse involving child pedophile sexual abuse and child pornography and satanic cult ritual abuse, wherein the perpetrators were caught directly in the act by law enforcement, arrested on the basis of irrefutable evidence at the scene, and faced serious charges which typically bring sentences of decades in prison. Number 2. Whereas search warrants were obtained for the Finders Cult office in Washington, D.C., and a complete search was enacted by law enforcement which provided irrefutable pictures, movies, and documents of such above abuse and neglect, and evidence of access to the confidential arrest reports on the Finders Cult from the arrests in Tallahassee, which occurred only a day earlier, suggesting very high-level connections to U.S. intelligence agencies in and of itself. Number 3, whereas all investigation of the Finders Cult by the FBI, U.S. Customs, and local law enforcement was ordered stopped by the U.S. Justice Department on grounds of national security, and the matter of the Finders Cult was turned over to the Central Intelligence Agency as an internal security matter. Since the Finders is and has been a domestic and international covert operation of the Central Intelligence Agency. Number 4, whereas any and all investigation of the Finders Cult was immediately stopped, all evidence was suppressed and denied, the abused child victims were released back to the adult perpetrators who had been arrested in the act, and the CIA resumed its ongoing covert operation of the Finders Cult, which is used to procure and produce the development of child assets to be used to entrap politicians, diplomats, and corporate and law enforcement officials, to sell such child victims to wealthy perverts to raise money for covert operations, to train some of the child victims to be professional operatives and assassins of a totally cold, multiple personality, mind-controlled nature. This most disgusting perversion perpetrated by our government needs to be exposed.
Where is everybody now? I haven't been able to locate them all, but I found some of them. Everything I used is public knowledge and public sourced. Newspaper clippings, social media, stuff that anybody can see. It's just an interesting case, and they seem to have disappeared. And again, I want to thank Ben's Muircroft, Majestic Angel, The Unknown Observer, who has a YouTube page. It's pretty good. You should check him out. I'll leave a link. From the Tallahassee Democrat, Thursday, February 19, 1987. Marion D. Petty, the mysterious founder of the Finders, is said to be in India, but purportedly says in a memo to reporters to have resigned as the group's leader, quote, to devote myself full-time to Zen walking. Like Kung Fu? The unsigned one-page memo from MD Petty was hand-delivered Wednesday. Here is the text of the letter. I didn't know that I was the leader of the Finders. I thought I was just a consultant on wit and humor. If I ever was a leader, I hereby resign to devote myself full-time to Zen walking, and I recommend that the Finders hold an election as soon as possible. The brief message raised more questions about Petty, who is often called the Stroller by followers because his love of walking. Family members and followers say Petty, 66, is a widely traveled retired Army Master Sergeant who leads his followers on elaborate game-playing exercises. Sounds like he's fucking crazy to me. The return address on the computer-printed message is given in care of Joseph Chilton Pierce in some made-up place in India. So Douglas Ammerman, 27, his father, Clarence Ammerman, a University of Florida agriculture professor for 29 years, traveled from Gainesville to testify that he believed his son would show up for court. James Francis Howell, a high school math teacher from Long Island, New York, described a bright son who joined the Army Reserve in 1984. "I know Michael to be someone who keeps his word," the father testified, and pulled out a pocket-sized album of photographs, anxious to show the judge his son in a less incriminating light.
"Look at my kids!"
But when asked, neither father was willing or able to post any of their property towards their son's release, leaving the prosecutor to later comment that not even family wants to gamble on these two. One father's testimony didn't reflect the closest of family ties, as Clarence Ammerman testified, "Well, we didn't see a lot of Doug since he finished high school. We haven't had much contact in the past 4 years." But Clarence Ammerman and his wife Beatrice testified their son showed up on January 20th at their Gainesville home with a little boy, almost 3 years old, announcing he was their grandchild. During that 1-hour surprise visit, the Ammermans described the toddler as healthy and clean. Later, when the big story broke of the arrest of 2 men in coat and tie in the company of 6 scruffy children, the Ammermans said they heard from Ed and Tommy Simmons, farmers in nearby Archer. The Simmons told the Ammermans, a lot of M's in these people's names, that shortly before their Tallahassee arrest, Doug Ammerman and Michael Howell and 6 healthy-looking children had been camping on the Simmons farm. Meanwhile, testimony from 2 women who say they're the mothers of 3 of the children, Patricia Livingstone, it's actually Livingstone, this one got it wrong, and Paula Errico, unearthed a few more details of the shared parenting style of the Washington, D.C.-based Finders community. Asked if they gave permission for a trip all the way to Mexico, the destination the defendants gave police, both mothers insisted they had total faith in the men, no matter how far away they traveled. And Errico, who named her 7-year-old girl Jordan, but lets the child call herself Mary, testified that rather than enroll her to school, she educates her daughter at home. Errico's other child, 2-year-old John Paul, also was on the trip. "I felt a need to separate from him," Errico testified. The officer, Judy Sochoki, recounted the afternoon of the arrest. She described all 6 children, ranging in age from 2 to 7, as dirty, bug-bitten, with scratched legs, wearing no underwear, mismatched socks, and hungry. The oldest, Mary, aka Jordan, was peeling oranges for the smaller children, and a strong odor of urine wasted from the blankets in the van, the officer testified. Ammerman first identified himself as Kenny Rogers. Should have came up with something more original. And Hallwell goes into a trance when questioned. And the mother with the 2 kids, Mary, aka Jordan, and John Paul, Paula Errico. Paula Errico Ferrasi, October 26 at 6:06 p.m. Heads up and FYI, apparently there has been a data dump by the FBI pertaining to the 1987 events that involved my group at the time, the so-called Finders. I don't see anything new, except the usual vitriolic responses by idiots who are always looking for a new way to bash someone. Lots of Twitter junk. I'm sure there will be more. So I just received a phone call from a reporter asking for a statement. I said it was all trumped up stuff at that time and there is nothing new since. And I made a decision not to publicly name or show any of the kids' Facebook pages that I found, but I did confirm this one, and I found her son too. If you check out our website for Seekers and Settlers, aka the Messy Hair Commune, an international community in Tallahassee, Florida. If you are seeking a community free of dogma and social constraints, then this might be the place for you. But then again, it might not be. Seekers and Settlers, SANS, is a communal household of 2.5 acres of wooded land 10 miles south of Tallahassee, Florida, in a neighborhood where a number of friends bought land homes near each other in order to have a land co-op type of arrangement About 20 families get together regularly for potluck dinners to play music, go swimming, or to do work projects. Older community directories have this area listed as Woodville Grapevine, but we call it Spiral Garden. Tallahassee also has several other True Land co-ops, a large food co-op, alternative schools, and a strong alternative community. As seekers and settlers, we are looking to form a growing communal household with those who have some skills, an above-average sensibility about life, and need to try something different. We're pretty laid back and like to maintain a certain casual yet steady pace. We want life to be as stress-free and creative as possible. But if you're looking for a place to loaf, look elsewhere. We've got work to do. We welcome visits by anyone serious about living in a community or experienced community members who think Sands might be the right one for them. But please do not bother contacting if A, you haven't checked out all of our links, B, you're looking for a typical community, C, you plan to arrive with no money, no food, and a broken car, D, you don't like our sense of humor. Paula is a brave soul responsible for opening her land and house to this experiment. Who in the right mind would do such a thing? Well, you can read her story yourself. Paula's story. One of my ideas for our community is Wanderers and Settlers, a base for those who want to spend some of their time traveling, but also want a home where they can come to recenter and refresh themselves. Ultimately, I want to be free to do the same, wander to other places, knowing that all will be cared for by those who are the current settlers. Plus, I have other ideas for supporting those of us who wish to perform right livelihood and work out of our home or work and travel. I have lived in international communities most of my adult life, and I want to live in a community for the rest of my life. I have worked on creating an international community on my land for several years, experimenting with living co-opportunity with friends. I want more visitors from the USA and from all around the planet who are interested in learning about community living, or who are working to create peace and justice on our planet. I envision using my house and land to shelter an ever-changing and evolving group of like-minded folks. And from her, you can connect to one of her friends, Carolyn Said, staff writer at the San Francisco Chronicle, on here or Twitter, where she has a check mark. Although I have not been able to confirm her son, BB, and he's one that I haven't been able to find yet, but it probably wasn't his real name anyway. And from Paula's page, we can also find her ex-husband and father of one of her kids, John Paul. If we type in Holwell, we find a Merlin Michael Holwell, and it looks just like an older version of James Michael Holwell. And it is, I've confirmed it. And he is also self-employed. Merlin's Magic Touch. What the fuck? And I was also able to find Kristen Noth, owner-partner of Foresight Alliance, an innovative consultant firm that applies foresight strategy and research to build organizations' resilience in today's increasingly complex and fast-changing environment. We expand our clients' perspective and extend their thinking via our suite of customized services, research, and analysis in years of experience. It's a consulting agency. And I'm pretty sure I confirmed her son, Benjamin. The only ones I haven't been able to find is Patricia Livingstone, which I found her. I found her address and all that, but I can't find any social media on her. And I found her son. He seems to be doing fine too, Max. I also haven't been able to confirm Judy Evans, or her daughter, Honeybee Evans. And I wasn't sure about Douglas Ammerman. This is from an old Yahoo group. Wednesday, December 13, 2006. This past weekend, I made the acquaintance of two people who, it turns out, have a strange history. Kristen Noth, who sometimes goes under the name Kristen K. Noth with an N, and currently goes by K. Noth, and Douglas Ammerman. During the late 1980s, they were members of a communal group known as the Finders. The Finders began as a loose association in the late 1960s under the guidance of Mary and David Petty. Although Petty died in 2003, the group probably persists today as a web of acquaintances. One can find quite a lot of material on the internet about the Finders, but almost all of it consists of reprints and rehashes of a series of news articles dating from 1988, when the Finders had their only run-in with the police. It was 1987, but he was close. I met Noth and Ammerman during the first 3 days of the week of December 10th, 2006. My fiance and I moved to Floyd, Virginia in February, and we were trying to convince my son to move to Floyd. He was visiting with us to look at houses for rent. Noth had placed an ad in the Floyd Press for some property she was just finishing purchasing. My son and I met her at the property, and he was inclined to rent the place. We had Noth and Ammerman over to our house the next evening and gave them a check for the first month's rent and deposit. But there were several unusual details about the arrangements that bothered us. Oddest was that they insisted that there be no written rental agreement, that all business be conducted on the basis of mutual trust. I had trouble sleeping that night, and out of curiosity, began Googling Noth and Ammerman. With only a little effort, I found an abundance of discomforting news reports and lurid speculation. I didn't know what to make of any of it, but being leery of getting involved in an open-end rental in what could, at the very least, have been a scam, we decided to cancel the arrangement. I called Noth the next day with a concocted story about my son changing his mind about moving to Floyd, returned the keys to the property, and got my son's check back. This was my only personal contact with anyone connected to the Finders. I started making detailed notes of my meeting with Noth and Ammerman in case additional complexity should arise, and I include these notes at the end of this memo. In 2000, Noth was seeking a position as a house sitter. Caretaking housekeeping situation wanted. Kristen K. Noth, noth@his.com. Professional couple with property management experience and excellent references available for caretaking/house sitting for exceptional people and properties in DC, short or long term. That's kind of scary. She enunciates carefully with no apparent regional accent, speaks in a rather deliberate, paced fashion, gives an impression of good manners and education. She's guarded in her speech as well, giving away no more information than she needs to. She said that she was a writer and journalist by trade, but didn't volunteer the genres in which she worked. She said she had recently taken a job as an analyst to bring in some extra money, but didn't name the organization for which she worked. So basically it was a trailer on a larger land plot with a bigger house in the back. She said that she and her boyfriend would be living at the larger house, but only intermittently. At some point, Kay mentioned that she was looking to rent the house to someone who wouldn't draw attention. I think she may have added, of the police, but that may have been only my interpretation. I said that she didn't need to worry that Walter didn't use drugs. I took that to be the thrust of her remark, a reasonable concern for a landlord. We asked whether she would be keeping any farm animals, since there were several sheds on the property close to the house. She said her and her boyfriend were thinking about buying 2 or 3 goats, but they'd keep them in the paddock across the driveway, well away from the house. Kay's boyfriend's name was Doug Ammerman. He was a little shorter than average, I'd say, but sturdy. I guess about 160, 170, middling long wavy brown hair, and not very well trimmed beard. He wore a visored cap, I think with some sort of bluegrass music motif, that he kept on throughout their visit. Otherwise I'd say he was dressed in a casual way, actually indifferently. I noticed a small tear in his canvas trousers. He had a slight rural, southern accent and spoke in a less mannered way than Kay. Kay had said earlier that he was a musician, apparently interested in bluegrass and old-time country music. It was he who had discovered Floyd and was pushing for the two of them to move there. He said that he ran across Floyd on his way back from the Galax Fiddlers Convention, which is held each summer in Galax, Virginia, about 50 miles from Floyd. Kay also mentioned that he was interested in Brazilian music and that he traveled a lot to Brazil. I tried to draw him out on the subject, but he wouldn't talk about it. I can't quite say why. I don't think he had any real interest in or knowledge of Brazilian music, but that's just the impression I got. I do believe that he was enthusiastic and knowledgeable about old-time music though. When he asked about signing a rental agreement, Kay and Doug appeared taken aback. Kay said she thought she had been clear earlier, that there was to be nothing in writing, that they preferred their relationships were based on trust. I was surprised in turn, but the property was so desirable that Walter and I agreed. So they got home, he talked to his wife, and they had misgivings about the commitment that they had just made. The lack of a written agreement, the cash deposit for electricity, the body language and guarded speech of Kay and Doug, and so forth. We couldn't quite put a finger on why we were so uneasy, so we decided to sleep on it. I woke up around 3 a.m. and unable to go back to sleep, I started searching for information about the two on the internet. He wanted to see if they were scam artists. Instead, he ran across the first references to the finders that he had ever read. So they went and gave the keys back and got their check back. Kristen and Doug's son is Ben, so you would figure they probably would keep in touch even if they are broken up, because they have a kid together. Going back to Kristen's Facebook page. In 62, she moved to Pakistan. In 66, she moved to New Delhi. In 68, she moved to Somalia. And in 70, she moved to DC. And then in 80, Washington. Is that odd? So going through her friends, I was looking for musicians. This one sticks out, Tommy Stone. Oh, he was in a band, the Protest Song Factory from Charlottesville. Interesting.
Monsanto, Monsanto, I had a bad dream. You poisoned the planet and patent the seed. Now the wind blowing pollen from my neighbor's field has got me in court while decreasing my yield. Sign, where's justice?
And then I started finding a lot. And according to one of the email addresses I found linked to his property, then it's him. But he goes by Slinky Cobblestone. I know it sounds ridiculous, but I found him.
Hey, this is Slinky Cobblestone Bonnaroo 2010 with all my good buddies here at the Sierra Nevada tent. We got a little song for you people out there in California.
Take that pipe and plug it, it ain't serving us no more. The 1% is the major reason we all feel so poor. Their corporate machine making all that money ain't working here no more. So take that pipe and plug it, it ain't serving us no more. Take that pipe and plug it, it ain't serving us no more. All right, thanks. Yeah!
Fucking stoned.